Welcome, and thank you for joining us on today's Travel Talks. I'm Diane Cook, the owner and principal travel designer for Seven Seas to Sea Travel. I specialize in not so routine and bucket list adventures. Today, my guest is from the New Zealand Tourism Board, and it is a real pleasure to have him with us. Hayden has been with the New Zealand Tourism Board for 5 years, and he has worked his entire career in the travel and hospitality field and has such a wealth of knowledge and experience. It is really, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. And I look forward to sharing New Zealand with you. Now, because we are such a small group today, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Just unmute yourself and ask, or you can type them in the chat and we'll be sure to get those answered. So Hayden, please take it away.
Perfect. Thank you, Diane, and thank you everyone for taking the time to join us today. I'd like to start in the traditional way we do with all our New Zealand updates, is with a kia ora. So if you see the lettering on my t-shirt here, kia ora in Maori, our Indigenous language, it's a greeting, it's a welcome, but when literally translated, it means to be well. So wishing you all well today, and thank you for giving up your time. It's obviously been a challenging year when it comes to travel, and I think it's remiss not to start with just giving you an update of where New Zealand is at. So obviously New Zealand done a wonderful job with their health response to COVID. The priority has been around ensuring that the health and well-being of New Zealanders is at the forefront, and we've worked really hard to ensure that that continues to be the case. If anything, we've really also highlighted what value tourism has to New Zealand, and it's very obvious when those tourists aren't there. So we are working through a plan at the moment with the government and New Zealand as to what reopening looks like. I don't have a date for you today, but I do encourage you to stay in touch with Diane. She's very well connected to myself and our suppliers, and she'll be able to update you on any news as we get that news. But we're hopeful that New Zealanders who want to be vaccinated will be before the end of the year, and that will enable us to open up to the rest of the world. At present, we've opened up to Australia and the Cook Islands with little travel bubbles, which is helping some of our tourism operators get through until we open to the rest of the world. But I digress to why should you come to New Zealand? I'm sure we always hear, and it's probably you can all concur that it's on a bucket list, right? Because we're over there on the other side of the world, it kind of gets put on this list. But there's so many reasons to go. And I think post-pandemic, it's really up to you guys to prioritize what's important to you, which places sing to you, which ones make sense to you, which values align. And we think New Zealand is that place. After being told that you had to stay at home, what better place to go than these beautiful, wide open, expansive spaces that New Zealand offers? And at the other side of that, we've got these warm, welcoming New Zealanders, which I'll touch on shortly. So after being in your own home or own office, dreaming about getting out to the world, imagine a landscape like this. This is beautiful Blanket Bay down there in Glenorchy. And from the front of this property, you can jump in a jet boat and go up a braided river. You could go skiing on the back of the property. You could simply take a stroll around the pond. You can come back to freshly foraged produce and have a beautiful degustation dinner. You can horse ride at the stables, or you can just sit back in the spa and relax. So amazing scenery to look forward to. And I touched on the people, and it's a huge element of travel. And I think it's something that we all can admit that we're missing. When you get off the plane for the first time and you're in this new place and they've got this weird accent, not dissimilar to mine, and the foods are called different, it all sounds a bit strange. But after a couple of days, you feel like that's part of the challenge and that's what you want to be part of. And that's a two-way street. And in New Zealand, we have a Maori term, which is manakitanga. And manakitanga refers to this really warm, welcoming feeling you get from New Zealanders. This want for us to share our stories, show you our landscapes, but also to find out where are you from, what brought you here, what do you want to do, and add value to your trip in doing so. Your natural playground, this is how we want you to treat New Zealand. And that doesn't have to be on the top of a mountain with a helicopter enjoying a cheese board and a glass of wine. That can just be taking your shoes off and walking along an untouched beach, or putting your shoes on and going for a short hike up to a waterfall, or just taking that drive through the vineyards with your local guide. But we have this really what we call in New Zealand a barefoot mentality. We don't have anything in nature that's going to hurt us. We don't have snakes, we don't have crocodiles, there's no bears in this environment or mountain lions coming down. So we're very naive when we travel, and so we encourage you to go and treat it the same way. But obviously treat it with respect. But this is a little video I'd just like to play to set the scene for the update today. It's called Messages from New Zealand. And as things started going into lockdown, we kind of stopped and looked about what we wanted to tell the rest of the world. And we thought the most important thing for us is our people, showing that they're safe and showing that they're really inviting and want to share our stories with you. So I'm just going to push play on this one now.
This is a message from New Zealand.
Where's my favourite place in New Zealand?
I'm not good with favourites.
Stewart Island.
Rotorua.
Burger because they feed me.
This place right here.
Tahu!
My favourite place is Matawaia. Nā te mea ko tērā tōku tūranga waiwai.
The Whanganui River, where it hits the ocean at Castle Cliff.
My favourite place in New Zealand is in the shower, because I think when I'm in the shower, that's when the best ideas occur.
I've had the best surf of my life in Kaikoura.
I love that place.
You can be in the ocean surfing while looking at the mountains.
The Waitakere Ranges, getting out in the bush in the solitude.
Castle Point, it's a beautiful beach in the Wairarapa.
Definitely the West Coast.
Right here.
Right here.
Oh, it'd have to be around here.
Queenstown.
Everywhere in New Zealand.
Scenery so good you can just about reach out and touch it.
All right, hopefully that gave you some tingles and made you thought that's where I want to be, and that we don't use actors for this stuff. We just find real people who want to tell real stories. So, although the one where he says he's in the shower, he's actually the founder of Rocket Lab, which is the first aerospace program in New Zealand that's sending rockets into space. But you wouldn't know that because he too is very grounded. But this image here probably needs to be updated. We're not sure exactly what it's going to look like in a post-COVID environment, but this is the connectivity to New Zealand. And when we're talking to potential future clients such as yourself, we want to break down barriers. And the first barrier to New Zealand, like I said, is the distance. And so with all of this air connectivity we were getting prior to the pandemic, it was making it easier than ever, no matter where you were located in the greater North America region, to make either a one-stop or a direct trip down to New Zealand. And we're not sure exactly what this will look like. We're confident that the West Coast flights will continue to start first. Actually, they're still flying out of Los Angeles for repatriation and freight. And then they'll start to move and open these other hub cities as we go along. The next barrier we see when we're talking to you is, all right, I want to go to New Zealand. It's on my bucket list, but it's this funny looking island down there in the South Pacific. I'm not really sure when I get there how to get around. So the first thing you do is talk to Diane. Obviously, she's got all the contacts to make it easy. She knows what your time frame looks like, what your budget might look like, and she can ensure that you can take the time to see it properly and make sure you focus on the things that are really important to you. But the easiest way to do that, if you're time poor, we have a wonderful domestic flight network. If we look at this map here and we look at the capital, not the capital city, but the largest one at the top there, Auckland, which is our largest city, and where all our North American arrival flights come to. Just to give you an idea, if you fly down here to the bottom of the South Island in Queenstown, that flight is less than 2 hours. So that shows you the ease and accessibility of getting around. And if we look at this map, we're only 1,000 miles from top to bottom. So from the top of the North Island to the bottom of the South. In saying that, we've got crazy geography. So we have mountains and lakes and rivers and glaciers and volcanoes. So you need to take your time, slow down and enjoy the journey. And we'll look at some of the ways you can do that. So depending on your confidence level, we do encourage people to drive, whether that's an electric car, a normal vehicle, a motorhome. If you feel comfortable driving on, it's not the wrong side, it's just the left side. And we, like Canadians, are a little bit better at this than they are down here, and where I'm in North America as we speak. However, at the same time, we want you to be safe, and this is the most important thing. So we've got great little videos that I can share with Diane to send on to you. It's about being proactive rather than reactive. You don't want to come across a whole heap of sheep crossing the road, which is a reality, and not know what to do. Or you don't want to come up to one of our unusual one-way bridges and not know who's got the right of way. So these things can help you think about that before you jump behind the wheel, give you confidence, and it means you can just get off the beaten path. Rather than following a very set itinerary, you might see a little cafe that looks perfect, pull over, meet the owner, they'll tell you a great little bushwalk to do down the road, and all these really organic relationships that you build along the way. As you saw from the picture before, we are 2 islands, North Island, South Island, little Stewart Island down the bottom there. And everyone asks, how do you get between the islands? As you can see, it's a short flight. If you're in Wellington at the bottom of the North Island, jumping across to the top of the South Island, about a 20, 25-minute flight straight up and down. Or if you want to take the scenic route, you can jump on the aptly named Inter-Island Ferry. About 3 hours and 20 minutes between the 2 islands, and you get to cruise this beautiful section through the Marlborough Sounds. You can be out on the aft deck there looking for wildlife, enjoying fish and chips. It's a great place to be. Another wonderful way to see the country, if you don't feel so confident behind the wheel, we have some incredible rail journeys. Particularly, we have a North Island one that goes the whole length of the North Island from Auckland down to Wellington, but the most scenic are those in the South Island. So the Transalpine and the Trans-Pacific. So the Transalpine's going across the mountain range up through Arthur's Pass, and the Transscenic's coming down between Picton and down to the Kaikoura coastline, both of which you can sit back. They've just introduced more luxury carriages, so they've got personalized commentary. You can have local cheese, local wine, sit back and enjoy the views. I think after lockdown, hopefully like me, you're dreaming of these wide open spaces, just getting out there, being at peace with nature and not having to worry about everything we have in the last 15 months or so. And a lovely way to do that is, we just call it walking in New Zealand, but other people call it hiking or tramping, is getting out there and going for a walk. And like I said, that might just be off on the side of the road on a short self-guided walk. It might be one of our great walks. We have 10 great walks now, which just can be guided or self-guided. Most of them, there's options where you don't even have to carry a bag anymore. You walk during the day, you have a nature guide, they point out all the beautiful things along the way. When you get to the other end, there's a hot shower, there's a good comfortable bed, there's a good night's sleep, and wonderful drinks and food. So that's my kind of hiking these days. Cycling, not dissimilar. Cycling, because of e-bikes, has become really accessible, right? No longer do you have to look at it and be like, oh, I'm not sure how this is going to work, or that's a very steep hill. You can rely on the technology to do all of the work. So we've got wonderful, great rides all the way through the country. And whether that's just through the vineyards or out around the edge of the lake, or just on a guided tour as a way to understand the geography of an area once you first arrive. Just going to touch on some experiences now, but thought I'd try and motivate you all a little bit more. This is a video that only finished getting edited just last week, and it just goes over some of the wow factors in New Zealand, some wow accommodations, some wow experiences, some great food and wine, and then of course some great people. So no commentary on this one, just some inspiration. I know that one makes me miss home, and hopefully it makes you want to travel down to New Zealand as soon as you can, and beat the masses. I'm sure our research shows us here in North America that preference for New Zealand has actually increased by the borders being closed. So everyone's going to be knocking at the door as and when we get that announcement. But by having someone like Diane, she can make sure you're ahead of the pack, you get that information first, and you can be down there to have it to yourself. I'm just trying to work today around, obviously I don't know you individually or your special interests, but some of those things that might motivate you. So standing there in gin clear glacial fed waters, looking and sight fishing for brown trout or rainbow trout or salmon. Lord of the Rings, everyone's had enough time to sit at home and actually watch the length of Lord of the Rings recently, and I'm excited to let you guys know, I'm not sure if you've seen the announcement, but Amazon has bought the rights to Lord of the Rings, and it's got special dispensation to be in New Zealand filming as we speak. So they're doing a huge budget reenactment of a TV series of Lord of the Rings. And so that's going to be another one that's going to allow you to sit at home and just dream about New Zealand, see our landscapes, and fall in love with the real Middle Earth all over again. A big part of New Zealand's, any travel to New Zealand, is understanding our Indigenous, our Maori culture. And there's wonderful ways for you to do that. So whether that's down the bottom of the screen there, attending a marae and getting a traditional greeting or a pōwhiri or welcome onto the marae, understanding some of their traditional practices, learning about their relationship with the land, which is really important, seeing how well the Maori culture is assimilated into New Zealand thanks to the Treaty of Waitangi. One of my favorite things is to experience a hangi. So a hangi is a traditional way that the Maori cook and prepare food and share it with others. And they have this wonderful understanding of kōrero and kai. So kōrero is conversation and kai is food. And it's this opportunity to see how they prepare food and share that conversation and then share that food with them as well and get a really good understanding of who this culture is, how we can continue the culture and what we can do to support that. For those at the wow factor, want to really escape the masses, what better way than jump in your own private helicopter, fly down into glacial carved fjords at the bottom of the island there, land on the back of a boat. Here you can see in front of the helicopter, there's actually a little jacuzzi or hot tub. They can go and pull up crayfish pots. You may refer to them as spiny rock lobster. You can enjoy your glass of wine, your rock lobster sitting in a hot tub. They've actually got an ROV, like an underground submersible vessel, which shows you so you don't have to dive down. You can sit and just look at the screen of what's underneath while you're up here in paradise. So special anniversaries, big birthdays coming up, get Diane to add this to your list. I think sitting at home, I know for myself and others I've talked to, it's been a chance to focus on wellness, and whether that's physical wellness or mental wellness. And we think that's something that people are going to continue in their everyday lives as they look to travel. So there's a hero shot here of your favorite yoga pose on top of a mountain, but wellness in New Zealand isn't all kale and green juice and yoga. It's more so, how do you involve yourself in the environment? How do you get out there, feel at one with nature, feel relaxed, get to clear your mind and feel like, yeah, you come back better from that experience in doing so. I don't know if we've got any keen golfers on the update today, but New Zealand's wonderful for golf courses. I believe we have the second most golf courses per capita, behind just Scotland, I think. Supposedly Iceland somewhere there as well, based on their lower population, but I'm not going to fight them for it. Either way, it's a wonderful golf destination. And we talk about golf courses designed by nature. And as you can see here, they've taken the natural contours of the land, added in a few challenging bunkers and things. And this one on the left is a real product. It's called Over the Top Golf. You can helicopter to the top of a mountain with Queenstown there in the background and play down to an actual playable green, which is a nice photo to send on one of their social media platforms to friends and family and remind them that you're having a better day than they are. It's not all helicopters in New Zealand, although they do come up often. There's a joke that they're as common as taxis when people are traveling there, and that's because of the geography that I talked about earlier. So whether it's a scenic trip or it's a way to save time when you're going from A to B, they'll always have full commentary on board and tell you what you can see from above, what you can experience, let you know where you could stop, and ensure that it's very much not just a transfer, it's an experience. Yeah. Big part of New Zealand for all of us, and I'm sure people have been consuming too much of this during lockdown, is the New Zealand wine. And New Zealand wine's become increasingly popular globally. There's much more accessibility now than there ever was. It all started with the Marlborough Sauvignon Blancs, which for many people is the taste of summer. I actually grew up in Marlborough myself, which if you look here at the two islands, the South Island being the lower one and look up to Marlborough. But this map is to remind you, particularly when you get to New Zealand, that because of our unique geography and topography, we don't just grow Sauvignon Blanc. We've got amazing wines the whole way down. So up at the top of the Northland, etc., you might be getting, they have wonderful Chardonnays that they're growing. They have great French blends, good Syrahs. As you get down into the Hawke's Bay, it's probably, not dissimilar as well. Then Marlborough, Wairarapa, more into the reds and the Sauvignon Blancs. And you get to this cold, rugged environment down in central Otago with these world-class Pinot Noirs, which sort of have to fight with the environment for this full-bodied flavour. So a wonderful way, and there's, I don't know how many cellar doors in the country, but probably too many, in a good way. And then with good wine, you need good food, right? And it's a huge part of travel for everyone these days is to go and go, what are the iconic food experiences that I can have? And I touched on the hangi previously, which it says here, hangi, and this is, in this image here, they're actually cooking it using the geothermal, like they have for centuries, using the geothermal activities to steam the food in the geothermal areas and then preparing it for you that way. This one at the top is one everyone laughs at because of our vowel sounds in New Zealand. We say fish and chips instead of fish and chips. And so having fish and chips in New Zealand, you're never more than 90-minute drive from a coastline, right? So we have beautiful kai moana, kai meaning food, moana referring to the sea. So beautiful seafood. And so whether that is the crayfish, the oysters, fish and chips on the beach, And then iconic ones as well, the New Zealand lamb. And I feel bad when I've hosted people through the country. They're like, look at that cute lamb, but then they're first to order it at the end of the day as well. So great experience. And just going to click through quickly, just a couple of accommodations, just so you're aware, there's a huge array of accommodation, and you can talk to Diane based on your budget to find what's best from you. So anything from little mum and dad owned B&Bs, which are in beautiful areas and they can share the story and come at a really reasonable price point, right the way up to some of the world's best accommodation, costing you up to 25,000 US dollars a night, which isn't in many people's budget at all, but it does exist there if you're looking for it. So just a couple of wow ones as we go through. Treetops Lodge, I love, as you can see, it's surrounded by native New Zealand rainforest and the bush, and they tie that into every experience they do. So one of my favorite ones here is you can go out with a Maori guide prior to dinner and go foraging, and he'll point out all the native plants and herbs that they're going to use in the meal. You can come back and help prepare the meal. You can go and get kawa, which is one of our native trees, and take the leaves and have them steeped in your hot water as a sleepy tea before you go to bed. And it kind of puts you in touch with the nature and the culture and makes you feel really at one with the environment. Bay of Many Coves, as I said, I grew up in Picton, which is a small town that the ferry goes to at the top of the island there. And the unique thing about Bay of Many Coves is that you can't reach this one by car. So there is boat access, there is a float plane you can come on, or you can helicopter into the top. But the boat trip is part of the experience. They can actually do it so you can stop along the way at a salmon farm and a mussel farm and try these new things. You can go dolphin swimming on the way out. And nice ways to tile that all together and just feel really at one with nature because no one's driving past your back door. Another one's here. Oh, did a double skip. If you're traveling with families or you're thinking, I'm going to take the kids or the grandkids, I think it's still every adult's dream to go and stay in a treehouse if the treehouse looks at this like this, right? So these things are 30 feet up in a Kanuka grove. We're looking at them from the ocean side, looking up. So we're actually looking over an olive grove into native bush and then up to these seaward Kaikoura ranges. So just this side of them, you're looking out, they've got deer. So they actually farm deer in New Zealand for velvet. And so you look over the deer, over the olive groves out to the ocean and have this beautiful mountain range behind you. And here you are sitting in a luxurious treehouse. And if that doesn't excite the kids to go traveling with you, I'm not sure what will. You're probably sitting there now going, all right, I want to go to New Zealand. If I could call Diane today and book a trip for tomorrow, I would. But you can still start those conversations. As we know, it's a trip that takes planning, it takes time, especially with the current unknown still. But when's a good time to go? It's country for all seasons, it really is. Because we're an island, we're very temperate. Although in the winter season, yes, we get snow on the mountains, the snow stays on the mountains. It's not like up there in Canada where you have to spend the morning digging yourself out of the house. It sits on the ground. It comes to the ground 3 or 4 times a year and it melts very quickly. This photo probably does it justice. This is probably September, October. There's still the remnants of snow up on the Southern Alps, but as you can see, the people in the picture here, they're in their active wear, they're out biking, the wildflowers are in full bloom, and they might be inside a little bit earlier with a glass of Pinot Noir by the fire, but they're not going to deal with the crowds that you might get over our summer months, which are kind of December through March, and you're going to get better price deals and things at that time of year as well. Just one more thing I'd like to touch on, one that's incredibly important to me, I think, personally, and I think important to everyone as we think about continuing to travel. And how can we not just travel for the sake of travel? How can we go to somewhere, like I said, who has aligned values with us and feels a sustainable way of traveling? And our messaging around this, we put out a couple of years ago, and it's called Tiaki. So Tiaki is a Maori word. Tiaki means to care for people and place. Which is a very simple concept, but one that if we're doing it so that the traveller and the New Zealander are doing that together, we don't talk about sustainability as much in New Zealand. We talk about enrichment. For us, sustainability is to keep something the same. What we want to do is enrich it for future generations. So Tiaki comes from a root word of kaitiaki or kaitiaki tanga. And kaitiaki tanga is this ideology of guardianship from Maori people that we are here for a finite period of time. It is our job to protect the land and to make it better for future generations. And through your travel to New Zealand, we can do that. We want to ensure that you enrich it. So when you do come, you travel with an open heart, you travel with an open mind, you listen to our stories, you share your stories, you encourage others to come, but to travel respectfully. So drive safely, clean up after yourself, leave the environment how you found it. and come back making New Zealand a better place from your travels. And there's a lovely little thing I'll share with Diane if you are thinking of coming. We call the Tiaki promise. And it's the ability for you to use social media platforms and other things to say, I'm going to New Zealand and I've taken the Tiaki promise. And it just shows all of your friends and family that before you got there and went, where am I and what am I doing? You'd actually stop to think about why you were traveling there and how it fit with you as a person, which is a really nice prospect. So be prepared, protect nature, keep New Zealand clean, and we'll all keep it nice and happy. But that's a very whirlwind top level overview of a beautiful country I could talk about for days on end. Just wondering if there's any questions come through there, Diane.
I don't have any. Anna or Mary Lou, do you have any questions you'd like to ask? And it's okay, if they come to you later, just send me an email. I will be sure to get you the answers. This has just been fantastic, Hayden. Thank you so much for joining us and just taking us on this virtual tour. There's so many things that I've seen in the last year. The Gordon Ramsay cooking show where they did a spotlight on a female chef from New Zealand. I think her restaurant is in Wellington, Hikai.
Hikai is the name of her restaurant,
yes.
And she's all about foraging native local foods. And yeah, I loved the series as well. They went out and caught eels, and if you haven't seen it, yeah, it was a good story about tying the land and the people with the food. So.
Absolutely. Oh, definitely. And Anna, yes, for sure. I have recorded this and I will send you the link and you can watch it and rewatch it and share it as you like. This is great. So if nothing else, thank you for being here today. And thank you, Hayden, for so graciously taking this on this adventure. And we look forward to visiting New Zealand ourselves very soon.
You're welcome. Thanks, Diana. I'd just like to finish by saying kia kaha. So in Māori, kia kaha means stay strong. We've made it this far. There's travel coming for us all around the corner. So maybe next time I'm seeing you, it'll be down there in beautiful Aotearoa, New Zealand.
That's right. Oh, thank you.